into your space.
Right. And we were talking a little bit before we went on about attachments. Have you ever got attachment yourself, Katie?
Yes, I have, on a couple occasions. I had an attachment that I was actually bedridden for about 8 days. It got me so sick, and this was before I kind of caught on. I thought I was doing my due diligence with my cleansings, and I, subconsciously, I guess, invited it in. And I was quite sick. I had to really go through a process of cleansing. There was another incident where I was doing some readings, and I kept feeling like I was going to throw up. And I had been to a really dark reading before that, and I had to actually stop the reading and say to the woman, "I'm sorry, I can't continue until we cleanse your house. Do you mind?" I said, "That's not going to charge you. This isn't about making money, but you are going to be seriously injured if we don't." And
Wow.
so I went ahead and cleansed the house. And as I was doing that, the Xbox fell off the living room kind of credenza. We heard coughing. Some gentleman was coughing, as if the sage was making him sick. And when I went home that night, I had a severe headache, and I felt like I was going to throw up. And I took a Tylenol, and I don't normally get headaches. And so I'm thinking, what is going on? And then I caught on, and I thought, okay. So I went and got my holy water, and I, put it on myself and kind of said my prayers and said, you got to back off. And within 10 minutes, I was back to normal. I had energy again. I didn't feel drained. It was great. I've had other incidences where they have actually, I went and did a big group session, and the house is quite haunted. And so during the session, I actually got a scratch on my neck, and everybody was sitting around me. There's 15 people there, and they were witnessing this. And the woman, I said, "Is there something you're not telling me? Like, I could pick up on the energy, but I wasn't sure if it was there to communicate with the people or if it was actually from the home." And she said, "No, actually, it's really been bothering my daughter." And her daughter at the time was about 11 months old. And so I said, "Okay, well, she said, 'Can you please get rid of this?' And I said, 'Absolutely, we'll be back.'" So about 4 or 5 days later, I was able to wrangle my team, and we had to travel a couple hours to get there. So I pick up one of my team members, and all of a sudden I felt angry. And the only way I can describe it is I was irate. I was so pissed off. I didn't want to be there. I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to go. I was just beside myself. And so I thought, well, in my head, I'm going, well, I'm going to have to get gas, and I don't want to do this, and I might as well get it now. Like, I was just beside myself, even inside. So I pulled over, and I stopped to get gas, and I was standing outside for a minute, and I just thought, okay, ground yourself. Like, what's wrong with you? And then it hit me, and I thought, you son of a gun. It was the energy of the house. The gentleman occupying that house did not want me coming back because he knew I could get rid of him. And so he was manipulating my thoughts into not wanting to be there. And that was a few years ago, and I'm kind of a lot more diligent about it now, about those thoughts, whether they're actually mine or not, because I'd like to think that I'm up to date on this stuff, and I'm constantly trying to protect myself. But no, that's another scenario, and I hadn't even really been to do the investigation yet.
Right. They try to make you think different things. Well, let me ask you this. What would your advice be to people out there that if they think they might have attachments, what can they look for to kind of validate that they might have an attachment? Like, what's some symptoms?
Well, symptoms can vary. So I tell people, if you're feeling drained, if you're waking up in the morning and you're feeling drained, and I mean, this is after you have gone, I always encourage everyone to go and speak to a doctor. Rule out mental illness, rule out physical illness, because a lot of, depression and stress really does a number on people. Once you've kind of been cleared in a physical basis, then you really got to start thinking about things. Are you feeling physically drained? Are you getting headaches? Are you getting mood swings? Is it affecting anybody else in the house? How are the animals or pets, if you have any, how are they being affected? Are you noticing anything physical? Is there anything being moved? Are you feeling any scratches, burning? Anything that's kind of out of the ordinary that you wouldn't, you wouldn't negate to be normal. And demonic entities, negative, evil entities, they don't, unlike Hollywood, they jump out at you. It doesn't really work like that, in my experience anyways. They try to convince you that you're crazy. They do it slowly. They slowly creep up on you, and they make you change your mind. They make you do things you wouldn't normally do, or get angry when you wouldn't normally get angry. So if you start to experience these things, I really encourage you, rather than, trying to deal with this on your own, find a professional that you can communicate with. A lot of people feel like they're dealing with this stuff alone, or they feel crazy. And a lot of the cases aren't like that. So it's so important to find a professional, somebody reputable, somebody that you can speak to that's going to help, put things into perspective or steer you in the right direction and try and get these things removed. But fear is what feeds it, and it's so important not to allow that to control you. Fear is a fight or flight instinct, and so our brains have been taught to kind of do that, to flight if you have to, or be afraid to keep alive. And so once you kind of talk yourself down and kind of get yourself back into your own perspective and realize that you have the ability to fight this, whether it's getting help or standing up for yourself, that really kind of pushes it back. So it can affect you the same.
Oh, absolutely. Let me ask you this, Katie. Say somebody came to you, had attachment, and they said, hey, can you get this off of me? Now, I know there's different ways to do it. How would you go about removing an attachment from somebody?
Well, I would, to be honest with you, I would have to take my own assessment. So,
right.
I would have to feel it on my own. Again,
yeah.
I do deal with people who are, mentally ill, and I don't want to write people off. I want people to feel that they can come to me. But, again, you have a variety of people. So if it was legit case, I would definitely work towards cleansings. I would cleanse. I would ask them, first of all, where they feel the attachment came. Did you buy anything recently? Was it an antique? Did you move to a new location? Did somebody give you something as a gift? Did you travel anywhere? And trying to find the cause of what happened, why this started to occur. And 9 times out of 10, I find out that usually people with an attachment, invited it in. I played with the Ouija board, or I went to this haunted location, or my friends and I were talking about it, or, certain things like that. Once we get to that conclusion of how it got there, then we have more power on how to get rid of it. And whether it's a series of cleansings, or, again, getting the diocese involved, whatever their religion. But I work with these people until I know that it's gone. And I leave them with stuff. I usually leave them with different things that they have to do. Not only do I cleanse the location, but I show them how to do it as well. If it's a very sticky attachment, I'll have them cleanse for 7 to 10 days every day. Like, this isn't just you wave some sage around and you're done. I get them to do it diligently for at least a week. And then, if it's over my head, and I'm not afraid to say that, then I will definitely put them in the right direction as to who they can get help from, whether it's a bishop or a demonologist. I have some great people that I work with and comrades that, we throw ideas back and forth, and I'm not afraid to send them in that direction either.
Mm-hmm. Great. That's great. I'm glad there's people out there like you to help people. Let me ask you this: being in Canada, besides dealing with spirits, have you ever had to come across some cryptids or UFOs or anything like along those lines?
We have dealt with. Talking about Buck Hill. I have some other series about that. In Northern Ontario, there has been throughout Canada. Actually, there's been many sightings of Bigfoot. So they've had lots of sightings of that, and they've been able to. They kind of keep that hush hush. As far as UFOs, I can honestly say I have seen a couple UFOs. But they're exactly that, unidentified flying objects. I didn't see anybody coming out of any ships or anything like that. I'm not saying I'm not a believer, but I have never had that part of an experience. But there's not as many legends up here as, there are in other places around the world.
Mm-hmm. So let me ask you this. What's your advice for people that want to get into this investigating for a hobby? What's your advice for those people?
I don't like the word hobby.
I don't either. I know.
Because this isn't something that you can play with, okay? So, the controversial thing, and I guess I shouldn't say Ouija board, but spirit board, where you communicate with the other side. That is simply just a piece of wood with a planchette. However, it's the active intent is what kind of turns it on. Okay, so people go, oh, I would never touch a Ouija board, but they'll order a spirit box, or they'll order, they'll start communicating through EVP. There's no difference. It's the active intent is what kind of causes that to happen. So I really think, I certainly wouldn't buy a motorcycle with never trying it before and jump on and get on, a major highway. And it's the same type of thing. With a horse, you're not going to jump on and gallop away. You got to learn the basics first. And it's so important to do your research. If this is something that you really want to get into, you have to ask yourself why you want to get into it. Is it just to collect evidence, or is it to actually help people? And, no judgment, whatever you want to do, however you want to do it is cool, but you have to realize that when you're getting into residential cases, you're dealing with people's lives, and you're dealing with people's, their dignity. And so, if this is something that you'd like to go to these businesses and do, then by all means do it. But make sure you do your research. You find out what equipment works for you. Try to talk to a team close to you that's reputable. And maybe see if you can get onto some investigations through that. And, just the important thing is educate yourself the right direction, because there's a lot of people there that don't know what they're doing. We have had to fix a lot of other investigators' mistakes, or, we've done many investigations where they'll go into a house and that's all they want is to get evidence, and they're excited. Meanwhile, the client is, we had one situation where a client was actually knocked down the stairs and it broke her legs. And so we had to go in there and, make sure that this entity was gone. So just be careful what you wish for. That's the biggest thing I can say is just know your stuff and be careful what you wish for.
Yeah, good advice. Absolutely. Let me ask you something else. What's your advice, or what's your opinion on people that like to investigate their own home? What's your take on that one?
Again, I don't think it's, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but whether you're getting paid for something or not. So, and I'm generalizing this with a job. How many people want to take their jobs home with them? A lot of people don't. Right. I don't do readings out of my house for a reason. Okay. It's because I have to set up perimeters for my safe space. I need a safe, sacred space that it's not going to come into. Okay. And I think that if you really suspect something, then yeah, okay. If you really have some, physical proof of things moving, or you're hearing voices and communicating, and you want to, double check, then I guess it's okay. But I wouldn't encourage, in my eyes, I think you have to have a sacred space. So again, you're taking your work home with you, and you're inviting that communication. So by inviting that communication, you would expect that there would be more paranormal activity to occur.
Yeah, absolutely. I got another question for you. What if you come across, can you find and locate portals, and are you able to do that? Do you do that? I should ask.
I can. Yes, I have. I have been able to find them. There's been some scenarios where it has, come through in odd places. There is usually natural sources. Close to natural sources is where I find a lot of them. There has been scenarios where I have found them in mirrors, physical doorways. There was one that was in the back of a closet of all places. But yeah, and when we're doing our cleansings, we really try to shut those portals down because, again, it's like a doorway. I tell my clients, would you leave your door unlocked and let a stranger come in? No, you wouldn't. So, it's really important to lock your car doors, lock your house doors, and lock your portal doors so that you're not getting that highway effect coming in and out.
Right. So you have closed a few portals. Let me ask you this. You wouldn't close an exit portal, only enter portals, correct?
I have, in my experience, I have found that they come in and they go out.
Okay. So, and that creates like a paranormal highway, and that could cause, you never know what could come through, right? Correct?
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. So, and again, people, what things do people do that you know of that can open these portals that they maybe shouldn't be doing?
Again, I think it's any act of divination. So divination meaning communicating with the other side. even you don't have to necessarily call out there. So when I do readings for people, when I go into a location for investigations, I do what's called closed channeling. The investigator in me doesn't like to say, who's here, who wants to communicate with me, because that is an act of an invitation. So I like to stay on point of who somebody wants to communicate with or who would be in the location. Obviously, when you go into a haunted location and, if somebody